Hey, what's up? Am I on? Am I good? Did I just flip my sunglasses off and no one heard me say what's up? I'm blasting. That's pretty awesome. Hello, deep dive and fellow UTD people. My name's Cort, and before I jump in to this really fun message I have two things. One, can I ask for is there a paperclip around here or something? Because my pages keep moving. That would be very helpful. Thank you, Kylie. And also, before I jump into my sermon, I would like to start with what has now become the stereotypical introduction for our Focus pastors, because you don't know any of us. You haven't gotten the opportunity to meet us. So, Rhett, first slide there. My name's Cort, and I joined Focus back in the 14-15 school year at Collin College. I gave y'all a picture of my first core there. I'm in the top, looks like right corner for y'all. The little guy with the afro. So cute. Look at that guy. He's 18. He's a little younger than I am now. But I had a great experience with that core, a great first experience with Focus. When I came to this ministry, I had grown up around people in Focus. But honestly, when I was coming to college out of high school, I did not really want to be in Focus. I much more so, thank you, Kylie, wanted to go pursue an art degree at a design school. I applied at a bunch of them, got a little bit of money from some of them, and then went to Collin instead. I got to be a part of a really cool community that was growing over there. That first core there, I got to be in it with a few people who are now some of my greatest friends, guys like that maybe some of y'all know. Guys like Cale Rowe, who went to UTD here, Matt Pat, who was a Corfa very recently in our ministry. And then some guys who have been around the church community, like James Brown, Tommy Dickinson, David Pacheco. These are just some really great guys. I really enjoyed that core a lot. It meant a lot to me and really set me on a path towards cool growth. From Collin, I transferred to UTD, where I got a BA in ATech in the spring of 2019, which was a long journey, to say the least. I came here wanting to focus on sound design, and while I was pursuing that degree, that plan went away. They no longer offer that as a degree at UT Dallas, unfortunately. You can still take classes, which I recommend you do. Great elective, so much fun. I might be a little biased, but great thing, great class. Look for David Marks if you have the opportunity, one of the coolest professors I've ever worked with. But in pursuing that, I had to switch to general ATech to be able to graduate, and so I did. And honestly, I did really enjoy my time at UTD, even in spite of some pretty frustrating things happening. I got to know a lot of really cool people, some of whom I'll talk about in this sermon. I got to really grow as a friend, which is huge to me now, I think. Back on my time, it's so very important. And, I got to be around my eventual wife a lot more. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, the beautiful, fantastic, talented, artistic Kelsey, who has dealt with me for too many years already. I'm got to be the most frustrating person to be married to, but she loves me and I love her a lot, and she's just really great. But yeah, I got to, she went to UTD here like I did, was a part of Focus, was a Corfa for a year here, and has just been a really great part of my life, and someone who's really forced me to focus on the faithful aspects of my walk a lot more than I have allowed myself to focus on them before, being married to her, being around her every day of the week. So last one, just to let y'all know that I'm going to be here working at UTD for the next, couple of years, so you're stuck with me. Very sorry. I left y'all some really intimidating pictures of myself just to let you know the kind of person you're dealing with. I really need to raise this up now because I really need to be able to read what's on these pages. Moving forward, I'm not going to be making jokes anymore. We're going into some serious stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited to get to be here with y'all for the next few years. In the last pretty much since right before I graduated, this campus has really been on my heart. I love you all a lot. I really don't know how to express that other than just getting to take this opportunity to say it. Like, I love y'all a lot. I really care about this campus, and I really see a lot of issues going on there that really sadden me, especially within schools like A-Tech and business that I've had a lot more personal interaction with. And so I want to be there, and I want to help how I can. So let's move into some more serious conversation. We're going to talk about some comparisons off the bat. So, what's more dangerous? Driving to Taco Bell to purchase a Baja Blast, or doing a cannonball into a piranha-infested waters? Take a couple seconds to consider. I think many of us probably are thinking that piranhas are a little more dangerous. They have teeth. Baja Blasting cars don't have sharp teeth. Piranhas have horror movies written about them. I don't know of any Mountain Dew-based horror movies. And magicians jump into tanks of piranhas. They don't jump into tanks of Baja Blast. But I've got some fun statistics to talk about. For one, there are not even 500 cases of attacks against people since Teddy Roosevelt deemed the tiny little fish on the bottom there to be a ruthless killing machine, which is just absolutely wild. I mean, like, these 500 cases are like serious injury cases. There have been people who have been like nipped by them by like messing around where they're hanging out, but like these are like actual serious injuries. Like, people had to go to the hospital because of a piranha. They're not that dangerous. On the contrary, next slide there. 38,000 people die in car accidents every year in America. 16,000 people are in car accidents every day. That's a lot bigger number than the about 200 people this year who have even been bitten by a piranha. 16,000 a day, 38,000 die a year. 200 people are bitten by a piranha in the same amount of time. 38,000 people die in a car. A lot more people are in cars, of course. You don't need me to tell you that. It's a pretty obvious fact. But driving is still a more dangerous thing to us because we have cars all around us, and they're objectively dangerous. I mean, what about a giant piece of metal that goes upwards of like 200 miles an hour, screams, I want to be inside that. That thing looks safe. I want to go from home to work in a bomb. I mean, it's terrifying. Cars are scary. But we treat them like they're routine, right? I treat driving like it's routine. I sometimes go for relaxing drives because I do see these dangerous things as kind of relaxing. I enjoy driving. I don't enjoy Highway 75, but I enjoy driving everywhere else. How about the Techspress? Dude, Techspress is awesome. I don't know what time you've been on Techspress, but the highway's sweet. But, 16,000 car accidents a day, 38,000 deaths a year. And we're afraid of smaller things, less risky things like piranhas, roller coasters, sharks, beaches, mountains. We see these things and we worry about them because we just know less about them. We have these fears, but largely these fears are not connected to reality. For example, Psychology Today did a study on why people are so bad at assessing risk. And they deemed that a lot of it is that we are really bad at associating numbers with actual risk. So for example, that less than 200 that's up there does not seem very scary when compared to the other number. It's just much bigger. But we can look at that in context. A lot less people are around piranhas than drive every day. So it would make sense that off the bat, that number would be smaller. It's still not a very risky thing. Largely the piranha is afraid of you because you're significantly larger than it is. But we still just tie these ideas that because we don't understand, it is scary, it is fearful, it incites fear. That number 16,000 that I keep pitching around, the number 38,000, those are big numbers. And again, we often tie we tie a lot more risk knowing that there's a big number there. like Psychology Today said, when we see a big number, we instantly become more afraid of it because out of context, it's a huge number. I don't know 38,000 people. More people than I know die every year in cars, and that's really sad. But there are 227 million licensed drivers in the US. So less than 0.00007% of drivers are in a car accident every day, and only a slightly larger percentage of that than that dies every year. These numbers are really tiny. They're not real risk. So it makes sense that we would not treat them with real risk. So our fear that we have is ultimately a lack of faith. We don't trust things. And ultimately, we don't trust that God has us. And so we do not act. That's that first point, that fear is a lack of faith. And I want to say off the bat that I'm not talking about phobia here. I think I want to make this distinction because phobias and fears are linked, but they're not the same. I, for example, am afraid of spiders. I cower at tiny things that have perceived risk because they're hideous, they move in a really creepy way. Their fangs, some of them do have objectively giant fangs, but their fangs, when you see pictures of them, they're just scary looking. But I have a friend, a very close friend I've grown up with, who has actual arachnophobia. Everything I just said would make him freeze, his skin crawl. He has just an inability to control his reaction to that because he has an actual phobia. So I'm not talking about that. His phobia robs him of his ability to have faith. Whereas my fear of spiders, I still have the ability to defend myself from them if I think necessary. I still have the ability to see them and not freeze, or to think about them and not shudder or cower or literally freeze. I have one time seen him, as a joke, mention holding a spider in his hand, and he froze in that position that he made for 5 minutes almost. He just didn't move from there. He kept talking after a moment or two, but he was still standing in that position that he made. It was terrifying. I felt really bad for him. But yeah, I have the ability to act in faith that I can control the situation. That if I think a spider is something that I need to call upon God for, I can call upon God to help that. I don't have my faith robbed from me. But people with phobia do have their faith robbed from them. So we're not focusing on that. Focusing on the things in our control. And I also want to address something that I hear about a lot at our campus. A lot of people saying they have social anxiety. I was reading another study. I should have written down which one it was, but it wasn't the Psychology Today one, that said approximately 70% of students have claimed to have a disorder that they have not been tested for. And that's kind of sad. 7% of Americans have actual social anxiety disorder. And that, it's a really hard thing to deal with. It is another thing that kind of robs you of your ability to have faith. And I hear so many people when it comes to having to face a social gathering or a circumstance, meeting people, going to an event, say either they will, but they have social anxiety, it's going to be kind of a big deal to them, or I don't want to go, I have social anxiety, it's going to be really hard. Hear this in and out of our community, all over the campus. But 7% of people actually have it. If you think you actually have social anxiety disorder, I would encourage you to try and seek help for that. I don't want you to go on having to deal with that alone. I think it's very important to have help. But if you don't have social anxiety disorder, stop using it as an excuse. It's not fair to the people who actually have to deal with it. So, now that I've called a lot of people out, probably made some people upset, Let's talk about the fear that lacks faith in God. Let's focus more in on what we're actually talking about when we talk about fear being a lack of faith. There. So, why is fear bad if it protects us? It isn't totally. God gave us fear to protect us. We are afraid of, like, being up really high and not being secure, or being around a dangerous animal, because that protects us. But fear is bad when we let fears that aren't based in reality guide our decision making. Like when we're afraid because we don't trust God has a situation. And the more we let the fear define our life, the more we will live a cowardly life. We're building a character of fear by doing that. We make up that going and meeting a new person is scary because something out of our control could happen. They could hate us, or they could scorn us, they could cancel us. There's so many bad things that could happen. What if I say something wrong? What if I embarrass myself? I have embarrassed myself. It's actually not that bad. But because some of the people that I've embarrassed myself to, I haven't seen since I've embarrassed myself. So I don't have to live with that anymore, right? Like, the number of students at UTD who I've said something embarrassing to during a welcome week dates back like 4 years at this point. I've said an embarrassing thing probably every year I've been here. But I made up that it's a scary thing. And I decided that I shouldn't meet this person for all those reasons. But none of them are based in reality. Maybe someone will hate you, or maybe you will say something embarrassing. But is that so bad that you should not meet someone? Maybe when you need to confront someone, you see something bad happening, say on campus. Like someone is, maybe an extreme example, maybe someone is saying like really inappropriate things to another person. You may not know either of them. Do you think you should go say something about that, or should you just pass along? Just go by, pretend you didn't see it. It's not your problem. You don't know those people. I don't think that's right. I mean, Christ expects us to speak into injustice. He makes a big deal about injustice in the Bible. So when we see it, we should speak to it. But we so often let fear, the fear of having to go into a scary situation, an unknown situation, a fear of these people hating us, maybe even a fear of danger to ourselves from stepping into the situation. But we decide that our fear is more important than maybe that person who's being harassed safety. We've decided that we're more important than someone else, and that is not what God wants for us. So he wants us to be courageous. Mark read for us Joshua 1:7-9. I'm going to read it again. It says, "Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful." And really listen to this last part. "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." We have this promise from God throughout Scripture. Another notable time when he said, "I will be with you," was in the Great Commission. If we're all Christians, we believe we should be doing that, right? So God has promised us time and time again that he will be with us. So why are we afraid? Why am I afraid to tell someone about their destructive behavior? Why am I afraid to be wrong in a meeting? Why am I afraid to make a mistake when working on a work project or a school project? Or just working on anything in general, really. And why am I afraid to make a new friend? These are all questions that I've wrestled with for myself a lot. For example, my biggest struggle as a leader for the first time at Collin was confronting people's sin. I had a hard time kind of like building my first core. I'd had to rely a lot on my COFA to really have guys in our core, which luckily, we still ended up with like 11 guys plus us, so he pulled way more weight than he needed to build that core. But it's with 3 guys, and I knew all 3 of them before the school year started. So it was Andrew definitely pulled his weight in that. But I met with probably like throughout the year like 5 guys, and for 3 of those guys, I think I really let them down that year. I might have like had shortcomings in my meeting with the other 2, certainly. I was a first-year leader. I was doing my best. I definitely think I did a good job of seeking advice on how to help them, which is why I started growing in this. But I definitely let 3 of those guys down very heavily. I let them continue in sin, because even though I would mention to them that I don't really think that something they're going to do is a good idea, I never told them why, or I never put my foot down, or I never actually looked them in the eye and said, I don't think that you need to be in a relationship with another person 2 weeks after you broke up with the last person you were in a relationship with. I think that you are chasing after things that are going to be destructive to you. And I've known you for a long time, or I've known you for a year and a half. I've seen what your life looks like when you're really pursuing God and what your life looks like when you're not pursuing God. I know who you are, and you're on a bad path. I never said that to these guys. I knew one of those guys I met him in 6th grade. He wasn't in my core my freshman year, but he was in my core again when I was a leader. He joined because he knew me. We were pretty good friends, but I obviously let him down pretty bad. He has been on a really bad path pretty much since he left Focus when I transferred to UTD, has not been in church since, has been arrested twice, has just been on a really destructive path, and it breaks my heart because I could have done something about it. Maybe. I don't know that for certain, but I might have been able to do something about it if I was bold. Next question, why am I afraid to be wrong in a meeting? This has been something I have kind of always called myself a listener, or just someone who wants to observe and learn, because it's a lot easier to observe and learn in core or in a meeting or in class than it is to make your voice heard and maybe be wrong and learn. You actually learn when you ask questions. You don't actually learn when you just sit back and wait for your question to be answered. Oftentimes it's not. I'm sure many of you have been in class, you didn't ask the question you thought about asking, and then the teacher never talked about it. It's the worst. But you have the power to make your voice heard. We are allowed to ask questions in class. Now be respectful to your professor, don't cut them off, wait for your turn, raise your hand, but make your voice heard. If you don't know something, ask about it. I know in my time on staff so far, I have grown in talking in meetings, but when I first joined, I think I didn't say something in maybe our first 3 or 4 meetings. I just kind of let them happen to me, which was an experience to say the least. One of our first 4 meetings was very exciting, but I never got the opportunity to grow as a minister because I never asked the questions why are we doing that this way? Why is this such a big deal? Why are we wanting to do that event there instead of somewhere else that seems like a viable option? I've learned these things now. Like, I understand them better now, but I could have learned this September 2019 as opposed to, sometime in 2020. I don't even remember when I started catching on to these things or really started asking questions. But I'm very much not perfect in this. I need to ask a lot more questions in meetings for sure, and in just other areas of my life with friends and stuff, but I am growing in this. And I know that it's important to my ability to grow as a minister, as a disciple, as a learner, to ask questions and be okay with being wrong. I'm already wrong. I already don't know it. Why don't I let other people know I don't know this so they can help me learn it? But we're afraid of being wrong. It's embarrassing. Why am I afraid of making a mistake when working on a project? This is a huge one for me. This one cuts me deep. When I make a mistake on a project, that's one of the quickest ways that I bring myself to tears, is to be like, oh no, I made a mistake on that thing because I didn't think about this thing. I'm a failure. I'm never going to graduate. I've ruined everything. My future is done. I have these I say these ridiculous things to myself. In class, I was able to talk myself out of these things, partially probably because that sound design went away. So largely I did not have as much investment to where I said, I'm a failure, my career's over. That stopped being in the question. But I was saying so many ridiculous things to myself as a habit that it carried over into work. And when I started making mistakes on things I didn't understand, they were destructive. And they were destructive for real. Because now I didn't have the excuse of, my program's canceled. I don't really care about a general A-Tech degree. I'm just going to care about the classes I care about. And in those, I'll take seriously my projects. But projects in other classes, let's get a B. Let's get a C. I don't care. I just need a good portfolio in what I care about. But now I'm working for a company, and when I make a mistake on a project, it not only affects me, it affects everyone and our image. And that, because I had built up destructive behavior, started cutting me really deep. And it really broke me, and I had to really learn how to reshape my confidence. But I'll get back to that point a little bit later. And then why am I afraid to make a new friend? When I'm on campus, why am I afraid to talk to people in class? Why am I afraid to talk to people in the SU? Why am I afraid to talk to people around the housing who are just out hanging out? I don't know. Do I not want more friends? Do I not want to meet new people or learn new things? Do I not want to have someone in class who I can text and be like, hey, I'm sick today. Can you send me some notes so I don't fall behind? What do we have to lose from meeting a new person? Are we afraid that they'll say no? Yeah, we are afraid they'll say no. Yeah. And sometimes they do, and that sucks. But shout out to Peter. He helped me actually learn why that's not a big deal when I was in his peer team for the first time. I don't even think I was really dealing with a rejection at the time, but I was just talking about something about this frustration. Oh, I was. I was complaining about being ignored. And Peter mentioned to me, he's like, what do you have to lose? You already have a bunch of friends. They're the one that's gaining a bunch of friends by coming and being a part of your ministry. They have everything to gain. You have one friend to gain. And I'm like, wow, they really do have a lot more to gain than I do. And, that makes their rejection, it flips it. Now I'm sad for them. Man, I wish for you that you realized the good thing I was offering to you. It's no longer about me, but it's about the person. I think that's more in line with Christ's heart. It still stinks a little bit to have to think that maybe some people will say no. But we shouldn't let the few people who will say no stop us from finding the people who will say yes. We shouldn't be so afraid that, someone will say, I don't like what you're into. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to hang out. I don't want to make time for you. Those things stink a little bit, but not a big deal. They have more to lose. I have, tons of people around here who love me. So, we shouldn't be so afraid of these things. God gives us lots of reasons to have lots of confidence. His simple command is, go and I will be with you. Like I said, he says it again in the Great Commission. That's a simple command to follow. Go and I'll be with you. Just go. Just do it. The little pain is real, but the little pain that we act on isn't based in reality. This brings me over to my next point. Boldness is obedience. We obey the call to go, and that is a bold action. Isaiah 6:8, God is looking for someone who will go. Isaiah says, send me. And that's one of the most bold scriptures in our entire Bible. God looking for someone to go, and Isaiah stepping up and saying, send me. God was not asking someone to go into a fun job. Prophesying's not very cool. It's really hard. You have to say really harsh things to people who don't want to hear it. But Isaiah accepted the call. That was very bold. Again, though, like with the fear thing, I think I need to make a couple of distinctions so that we can define boldness properly as we discuss this. So, for one, I said boldness is obedience. I don't want you to hear that and accept the inverse, that all obedience is boldness. There are lots of things we do in obedience to God that are not inherently bold. For me to pray alone in my room, like I'm asked to do by God, is obedient, not necessarily bold. For me to, have a humble spirit is not necessarily a bold thing, but it is something I'm asked to do, so it is obedient. So yeah, boldness is obedience, but obedience is not inherently boldness. And the other thing, this is very important, is that boldness is not a personality trait. We treat it like it's one. We treat it like there are bold people and not bold people, but boldness is not a personality trait. Boldness is a choice. I can practically hear people saying, because I've heard these words before, that person's a very bold person. That person, they just have such an easy time meeting people. That person, they're just so good at confronting people. Surely you're wrong, right? Surely I'm wrong. Boldness has to be something inherent, right? That's not correct. Boldness is a choice we have to make. It is a choice we're told to make multiple times. Multiple giant characters in the Bible were told to make a bold choice. So, let's talk about extroversion and introversion a little bit. You can both be bold. A lot of this boldness as a personality trait comes from that we see extroverts and we think that their wanting to be around people makes them a bold person. And we see an introvert who would rather be at home with a book by a fire, which sounds quite nice, honestly. And we say that they're just not bold. But I'm an extrovert. And I said the introvert thing sounds pretty nice because I'm an extrovert who does not really like to have to meet new people. Who doesn't really like I said before, to have to confront people. These things that we're talking about is just being extroverted personality traits. have nothing to do with extroversion and introversion. Those have everything to do with how we draw energy. Where do we go to recharge? Do we go to recharge with people, like I do? Or do we go to recharge with maybe one other person, but largely at home, kind of around the things that make us comfortable, like an introvert, like my wife? Both of them are good. Like, it's good to draw energy from people, and it's good to draw energy alone. But boldness has nothing to do with this. Where would I be as an extrovert if I did not take a step to like meet some people? If I did not take a step to like have friends around me, even if it's like not something I naturally want to do? Like, who would I recharge off of? And if you're an introvert and you don't take a step that is uncomfortable, who are you going to have to reach out to when you're lonely? Because that happens. We need people around us. We need to make a choice that that is bold. We need to go meet a person. We need to go confront a person so that we can do what God asked us to do. This is not about our personality. This is about making a choice because we're told to. So let's reflect together. What is bold? Is being a people person and meeting a bunch of people bold? Or is being a people person and confronting someone bold? Is being an analytical person and like asking questions of someone bold? Because, it might make someone uncomfortable, but it's just who you are. Or is being analytical and choosing, rather than questioning someone, I'm going to step in and I'm going to love them. Is that bold? Am I going to step into an unfun situation and am I going to act in love rather than asking questions of someone who's already hurting? And what's bold? Is it being a people pleaser and crossing the line for some laughs bold? Or is being a people pleaser and owning it when you make a mistake bold? This last one is kind of funny to me because I wrote it a little bit about myself specifically. I did something for a youth ministry fundraiser here once where I thought I was so bold and so funny. I wore a dress and pretended to be Anna and sung "Love is an Open Door" with one of my friends. Very funny. A lot of layers to that for sure. But and I still think it's funny, honestly. But I crossed the line a little bit. I did not pick an appropriate time to really cross-dress. I was in front of the church body. And, that was not cool to some people. And, luckily some of them came and told me, like, that was not a good choice. You shouldn't have done that. We're not very impressed by your funny joke. And, I was faced with, I either tell those people, no, I was funny, and I made a lot of people laugh, because I did make a lot of people laugh. Or I say, you're right. That wasn't appropriate. I'm sorry. What's bold? Arguably both, to stand up to someone or to accept your fault. But for someone who cares so much about pleasing people, to accept that I didn't please some people is bold to me. In Jeremiah 1:17 through 19, we see a character in the Bible we all hopefully agree is very bold. We see Jeremiah being introduced and being told to go confront Israel. Jeremiah was bold. He acted very boldly throughout that book. If you need an example, if you're having a difficult time accepting something you think God's calling you to, read Jeremiah for some inspiration. But Jeremiah didn't go because it's what he wanted to do. In verse 6 of chapter 1, he argues with God saying he can't go. He's too young and he can't speak well. In chapter 12, he has been doing the work some at that point, and he goes and complains to God. He's like, these people are the worst. They're wicked. They're like dead grass in a field. They don't take anything. They're not listening to me. It's too hard. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Jeremiah did not use my fun 21st century language to describe the situation. Arguably better written than all the years of language development that I have to speak with. But Jeremiah, in spite of these things, is obedient to God's plan. And that's what makes him such a bold character in our Bible. He's hated and scorned, like God said he would be, but he's faithful in carrying out God's will. And that is boldness. And we, compared to Jeremiah, guys, we have it really easy with the bold acts we're asked to make on campus to be disciples. We don't have people who will throw us into a well, threaten to kill us, like strip us of everything we have and leave us to die, beat us, scorn us. We don't have to deal with any of that, which is a blessing that we should be grateful for. But we are really afraid to say to someone, hey, Jesus is good, by the way. You should check him out. Hey, you want to come play Uno? I'm Cort. I want to be your friend. We just, this one's important because it's about me. Hey, that sinning you're doing, that's bad for you and for others, and you should stop. So what's the goal? The goal is to build bold character by doing bold acts. We've talked about the importance of bold acts. We're told to do them over and over. But what's the point? Is the point for us to always have to keep making difficult choices? The point is that in doing bold acts and choosing faith over fear, we are growing towards a character of boldness. We start with our heart stretching and going through growing pains of having to make a hard choice, but we eventually become a person who that hard choice becomes like just part of us because we have grown. And like I said before, if we practice fear, alternatively we grow in fear and we end up with a character of fear. So, we should act in faith, and we should grow in a character of faith. We should act in boldness and grow in a character of boldness. Like I mentioned earlier, I did not do a very good job of meeting people when I was at Corfa for the first time. Like I said, I brought 3 people to my first Corps. I knew all of them prior to starting the Corps, and I was okay with that because my Corps was kind of big. We met on a night that had another Corps, and we had, with me and Andrew, 13 people at a Corps. Like, that's nice. I'm proud of that. I can give myself a thumbs up. I did good. But, I had to learn to grow to meet people. And luckily, my peer team leader and Garrett both told me that I needed to do that. That, like, it's good that I have a Corps that size, but it's not good that I did not go meet people. And so I started working to grow in that year from their pushing. And by the time I transferred to UTD, though I wasn't perfect, I did begin meeting people, and I began to build some of the greatest friendships I have. my first year at UTD, I was told 1 week into school by my Corfa, or the guy who I had chosen to be my Corfa, course started the next week, to meet a guy named Daniel Kalina after an F&F. Cort 2 years prior to that would have made an excuse to not to. Cort the year before that would have said, okay, gone over there, met him, and that was the end of it, because I didn't want to really invest in that. He's someone else's friend. I can go invest in the friends I've got over here that I already made, that I've already that I grew up with, so I already know them. They're comfortable. But no, instead, Cort at that year had been going through some growing, and he met Daniel, became a friend, and he started one of the absolute most fulfilling relationships he has. And since that year, every year at UTD, I've met some great new people in classes, in Welcome Week, and all that stuff. Because I grew in boldness. And now this act that was once a very bold act for me to go and meet a person is now just something that I'm okay doing. It's a part of me now. It is a part of my character that I'm okay meeting people, that I like to meet new people and make new friends. So let's take a break. I've gone for a little bit longer than I should have. We'll give you, I think, 5 minutes, and we'll come back, and I will try to be quick. All right, so we're back. Let's join. I'm off. I see a light lighting up. Am I here now?
I just don't see anything coming in.
Nothing's coming in? Oh no.
You're coming in.
I'm coming in?
You're good now.
Hooray! We can get back. Let's get back in from the break. Let's get through the end of starting late. So, wait, what? Oh, apparently I was coming out the entire time. Terribly sorry y'all got to hear me go through a roller coaster, but let's get through this sermon. All right, this next point that we're going to go to, we aren't confident because we are good. We're confident because God is good. This is a lesson that I've been really learning, even though I've heard a different version of it my entire life. In my apprentice class last year, I heard Ronnie Worsham, the pastor of the Northeast Church, who I have kind of grown up under, say, probably every week, that he's not here because he's good, he's here because God's good. And I haven't realized until very recently just how real of a thing that is. I'm so not good, but I'm here because God's good. But also, that is a huge major theme in Scripture. People draw their confidence not because they are super impressive, but because God is very good. Joshua did not think, I'm an incredible military genius. I'm going to go take Jericho with this really creative strategy of just walking around in circles. That's not good military strategy. They'll just stand up on the wall and they'll just fire arrows down on you if they think you're an actual threat. Then you lose. It stinks. But Joshua did that very bad military strategy because God said do it. And he had the faith to follow God, and he trusted even if this strategy isn't good, God is good. And they won the day. They took Jericho. David was not motivated to take on Goliath because he's the best person in the world with a slingshot. He knows he can hit that guy right between the eyes and take him down. David was confident because that oaf, as he called him, was insulting his Lord. And he said, God is with our military. Why are we not fighting with him? Why are we not going out and defending his name and showing how great he is? And so he went out alone, knowing that God was good, and he stood up to a giant and took him down. In the New Testament, Stephen stood up to the Sanhedrin. I don't think he did that because he thought he knew the Old Testament better than all the people there who spend every day of their life studying those texts. Stephen stood up to them because he had the Spirit of God with him, and he prophesied to people who knew those texts better than he did because God was with him. We get to have a lot of confidence to be bold like we've been talking about, to not have fear like we've talked about, because God is really good. He has really powerful things in our lives. We can read all these stories and say, that's just the Bible. They're just making a cool deal out of stories that really prove the point that the Bible's trying to prove, that God is good. But, in my life, I've seen God do good things because I trusted him. I've not, I think, once, helped someone grow as a disciple because I am a good disciple. I really, in hindsight, kind of think that most of the time when I've been mentoring or helping people study the Word, that I've been a pretty bad disciple. I certainly don't have my faith where it is today when I was doing that. But I've been able, especially last year with this one guy who I love a lot, I really got to see a lot of change because I've persevered with him because I knew God wanted me to. Partially because I told God I didn't want to anymore, and I made a deal with him, and you know what? Next time I went and met with that guy, God met that deal. He said, I'm going to speak this word through him, and you're going to know that you have to continue on this race. And I have seen that guy change so much that literally talking to him today brings me joy. But that's God. We get to be confident. We get to move forward in acts. We get to be bold. We get to choose faith over fear because God is really good. And we should believe that. But I didn't always believe that. I oftentimes believe I have to be good to make this happen. But the more that I've let God be who is good, and I've let myself be a tool rather than the driver, I've realized that there's a lot more good works coming out of me than when I'm trying to do my own thing. I'm going to turn it over to Mandy very soon, but before I do that, I want to read a verse to y'all that has really helped me a lot in grasping just how good God is, how serious we should be about having confidence. And I'm going to pray for y'all after I do that. That verse is Romans 8:31 through 34. And I recommend reading that or writing it down if you can't read it immediately. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? It is God who justifies. Who then is the one who condemns? No one. Christ Jesus died. More than that, who was raised to life, is at the right hand of God and is also interceding for us. I know it's really hard to make heart changes or just to hear a verse and be convinced that what I've been feeling is not real, but what is out there is. I've been in the process of making that heart change really a lot over the past year and a half. But I want to say to y'all, take heart. The God that promised he would be with you in Joshua throughout the Bible, and again when he gave us the Great Commission, he is with you. You're capable of doing great, bold, confident things. Go do those and trust that God is with you. God, I pray that you would be with us as you have promised to be. Help us to understand that you empower us to make bold choices, that through you we can grow in faith so that one day our boldness is a part of us. It's not something we have to stretch ourselves to have. Let us be grateful if we have to suffer, if we have to face denial or whatever else we are afraid of. Because whatever we do it with you. Amen.
Yay, thank you so much, Cort, for that. Before you stands the testimony of the evening. I'm going to share some of my testimony with you as it applies to this. But before you stands a very bold and very confident woman. But the thing I wanted to tell you is that was not always me. I grew up a very, very shy person. I just remember being so afraid, even in situations and with people who really loved me a lot. I would just kind of stand in the corner, and I was kind of like the cat who has to like warm up to you being there. It took me a little while to warm up to my cousins when they would come to my grandparents' house, and I just remember sitting there wishing they would play with me, but I was too shy to even walk up to them. I remember school was a lot the same way. I was never the like bold, confident person to walk through school and talk to people and greet them or even talk to my teachers or anything like that. I was just most comfortable as the wallflower, just hoping that no one noticed me at all. I remember having to find jobs and just being so scared to go place to place looking for a job, trying to talk to people I didn't know, interviewing. Oh, so scary. I couldn't answer questions or talk about myself or anything like that. I just wasn't comfortable around people. And it's just interesting how much God has helped me grow out of my shyness and out of my fear into this bold and confident woman. At some point in my life, I just had to realize who we are, who I am to God, that I'm his dearly loved daughter. He's my protector. If I was going to change, I needed to actively do things in my life that were going to cause me to change. I had to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I couldn't just talk to the people I was comfortable with all the time. I personally had to work. I had to have a job starting in high school, and God really used that to help me to change. So work kind of started this process for me. And to be careful of our time, I'm going to skip some of my stories that I kind of wrote in here because I wrote a lot of them. I really wanted to do this sermon a lot too. I told Cort, yeah, this is a sermon I really want to do because this really is an area I could talk about for hours. One of my first jobs that I did, I worked for this temp agency, and I had to go and work at a call center where you cold called people to try to refinance their mobile homes. Okay, so imagine this, like calling, hi, this is Amanda from whatever company it was, and then I had to convince them that it was a good idea, that we could give them a better interest rate, they would save money. People gave me their social security numbers over the phone, they gave me their addresses, all of this information so they could refinance their mobile home. It was so scary to me. People yelled at me, people hung up on me, people hated me. Some people I was able to sell to. But what that really taught me was that, at the end of the day, they may have yelled and not liked me and all of those things, but why was the phone so scary in the first place? They couldn't come through the phone and, kill me or something, and actually I did get pretty good at it, and it broke me out of some of my shyness. Another job I had really taught me how to relate to people who were so different from me. There was this older woman who worked with me, and she was a heavy smoker. So literally, she would kind of sound like this. She couldn't hardly talk because she smoked so many cigarettes. She smoked and didn't even have a voice anymore. And I'm like, what did I have in common with her? And what did I have in common with this girl, Colette, who worked in this small little room with me and would listen to Breakfast at Tiffany's, I don't know if y'all know this song. It's from 1995. How does it go? And I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? That one? Heard it about 50,000 times. I don't know why she was obsessed with it. And she was obsessed with the movie. breakfast at Tiffany's, which is way past my time. But I had to learn to relate to these people and to make a connection and to grow in my boldness that I even could, in my confidence to know that. When I started college, same thing. Neither of my parents went to college. It was all so new. It was all so scary. I didn't know if I would make friends. I had to push myself out of my comfort zone. I made a goal when I went to college to talk to new people. I talked to people in my classes. I commuted, so I had to work really, really hard at it, and I was terrified. But I did it, and I have friendships that last till today, which is, I don't know, 20 years later, and it's been great for me. They've been so sweet because I was actually bold enough to open my mouth and talk to someone that I didn't know. Y'all, this wind is just killing me. They have wind in here and it's blowing my papers. The most influential job that I had, I worked at a bank. And you know, when you start a bank, there's all these rules and regulations and things that you have to do. I was terrified. That's the only way I can describe it. My first day of work, I was like, "Sir, may I help you?" My very first customer. Here I go. And I asked for his ID, which was the wrong question for him because he came into the bank all the time. Everyone knew him, but I was new. So I asked for his ID. He literally yelled at me, my very first customer. He yelled at me and he asked me why I was going so slow. How dare I ask for his ID? If you've ever had a job in customer service, you know what I'm talking about. People are so mean to you. I literally went to the back and cried. I had to really figure out what I was afraid of and why did I care. I wasn't confident. I didn't know what I was doing. At that job, I helped sometimes 400 people a day. I got, way better at it. God taught me how to talk to all kinds of people. I could relate to them. I learned how to calm people down when they got mad. I just gained like this confidence about me, and it helped everything be better. God taught me so much there, and I'm forever grateful for that. One day at that job in October, a man came in and he put a paper bag down and he said that he put a note next to it and it said, "Fill my bag. I have a gun under my belt." And he pointed a gun at me, and I was robbed at gunpoint at my job. So talk about fear, scared, all of these, feelings. I had to ride with the FBI to go help identify him. And, I was afraid. The world's not a safe place, I realized. But through it all and through dealing with major trauma, I know some of you've dealt with trauma in your life. God was there every step of the way through it. And I just had this realization that every moment really is a precious gift from him. And that he's defeated the one thing I really should be afraid of without him, and that's death. And I don't need to live any day of my life in fear because my protector is with me and he is working to make all things new. He sees the brokenness and the pain that I went through that. And he's given me a confidence to stand before you and not be afraid of anything that comes my way. The story that really helped me grow in my boldness, and I'm going to wrap up short because I could literally talk about this all day. There was this man at another bank I worked at who was a higher level than me, and he was such a jerk. He got so mad at me, and he would come to my desk and belittle me and he would literally tell me I was stupid and didn't know how to do my job. And I just got so upset. And Ronnie told me, he said, "Mandy, you go into his office and you go tell him that this is over. He is not going to treat you like that anymore." Okay, so imagine shy quiet, not bold yet, 22, 23-year-old Mandy walking into a 45-year-old man's office, a man, and telling him that. I walked into that man's office that day, and I said, Jeff, this is over. You are not going to treat me like that anymore. It's done. You will not belittle me. You will not talk to me like that. I am not going to help you anymore. You have no power over me. And, yeah. And then I like walked out and I'm like, what did I just do? But it was so empowering in a way that I can't tell you. Because number one, I think if you know me, I've just taught like you respect men, you're a woman. Well, no man is going to treat me bad is what I decided that day. And guess what? I found out what a coward that man actually was. He was afraid of little me. He never talked to me again. He would just avoid eye contact. And I was like, I don't know. It just made me realize something, that some of these people that we think have this power over us, they don't. Go be bold. You are a child of God. No one gets to treat you bad. And that's like, we take we don't take abuse. We take some things for God. We do some things. But do you know what I'm saying? No one's going to abuse me, if that makes sense, because I am a child of God and I deserve better. And that was my moment where I became a bold, confident woman. So a lot of those things, those questions in my life I had to answer. I'm like, okay, yeah, Mandy, people may yell at you. So what? People may not like you. So what? People may think you're stupid. So what? And I want to encourage, I still have fears. We had to play fishbowl. Brett made me at a staff thing, and it just like sheer panic came over me because I might look stupid. I hate being embarrassed so much, and I hate people laughing at me. It's still something that's really hard for me. But you don't get better at those things by sitting on the sidelines. You get in there and you do it. So I want to encourage you guys to go be bold, go be confident, go be the child of God that you are too. And I hope my testimony means something. I probably didn't say it all perfect because, let's be honest, I tried to shorten all of my words. So I love you guys. And thank you so much, Cort.